This program is brought to you in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support education, the arts, and culture in the greater New Orleans area.
Hello, I'm Marcia Cavanaugh. Thanks so much for joining us. There are three major causes of damage from hurricanes: wind, water, and insurance. This season, it is the latter that has locals worried the most. While most of the damage was done in Florida, we need to wonder about the after effects. We have at least been hearing encouraging news about a decline in crime. We will look at some of the latest numbers. Numbers of all sorts will be rolling soon with the grand opening of the revamped and renamed Caesars Casino. We will examine if the new look can give a boost not just to the high rollers, but to the economy. We will also look at the status of the Saints season to date, especially after this week when Sean Payton and Drew Brees were watching. And of course, the biggest economic development story of the week is the coming of Taylor Swift. Our Future Watch segment examines the competition to provide short-term rentals, and hint, it's pretty intense. Joining us are tonight's Informed Sources. Errol Laborde, producer of Informed Sources; Don Ostrom, Channel 12's Future Watch reporter; LeBron Joseph, news anchor and reporter, WGNO-TV, Channel 26; and Tony McCauley, staff writer, The Times-Picayune, The New Orleans Advocate. And we stay with Tony because insurance, homeowners insurance. Is it going to get any better for us? I mean, we were all holding our breath, as we always do during hurricane season, and we're not quite exhaling yet for us here locally, but it's not been awful for us this season. And if the cool fronts keep coming like we hope they do, hopefully we're out of the woods. But what is that going to do? Will it help our insurance rates?
Yeah, well, we did think it was going to be not as forecast, the busiest hurricane season in many years, when we got through Francine relatively unscathed, but then the two big ones came along. And the way that we would feel it is in what they call the reinsurance market. So that's all the big insurance companies that like State Farm and so on. They set their rates by laying off their insurance policies in Lloyd's of London and other kind of reinsurance markets. So this has been the fifth straight year when catastrophes around the globe have been more than 100 million. It was going to be less, but then this double whammy that hit Florida and the other southeastern states look like they're going to cause damages of combined of something like 35 to 50 million. Those are the latest estimates. So that puts up...
Million or billion?
What did I say?
I think you said million. Is it billion?
Wishful thinking. Billion. Yeah. And that's quite, because that's going to push those reinsurance rates up again for another year of catastrophes that's likely to kind of reverberate down the road. Experts they don't know yet, basically, what the full effect of it's going to be. We won't know for months, and, they set these policies on annual or 18-month basis. So it's going to be a little while till we actually see it, but we're already starting from very high rates. As we know, we're the second highest in the country after Florida, and we pay, like 3 to 4 times as much as the average at something like over 7,000 for the state and like 10,000 a year for our metro area. Sorry. So anyway, bottom line, I think, is that what the effect of these storms is that where we might have seen maybe some easing, we can probably forget that. That we'll probably see policies stay high. I think not go up very much like we'd seen obviously after our big storms, but stay at that kind of high level.
And nobody's going insolvent here this year, not in the state of Louisiana at least. Right.
And they, the initial hope is that they won't go insolvent. They're pretty well capitalized even in Florida. They're going to take hits in the fourth quarter, but because they lay it off in the market, as I was explaining, it looks like it won't have that level of impact.
Did you want to say something?
We've heard of candidates running radio spots for themselves when they're running for office, but there's a whole series of spots running for Jeff Landry. Two people talking, what a great guy Jeff Landry is. And the thing they talk about over and over again is insurance. They've got something like 30 pieces of legislation out there to do something about insurance. I know that legislative session coming up, I'm sure that's going to be in the forefront, but there's obviously a lot of talk about that. But the other thing I want to mention is that Jim Brown, former insurance commissioner, he does a weekly column, and in it he talks about this issue. And he says what he's been urging, because of this whole reinsurance thing, there's a problem when the reinsurance people can't even afford it, and that Congress have a national backstop for reinsurance, in a sense, to reinsure the reinsurance people. And then maybe if that would happen, it can level off. But there's a lot of discussion.
There's a proposal that's been out there for a couple of years now by a Democratic congressman from Florida, which has sort of tentative backing from Troy Carter, who's the Disaster Recovery Caucus leader in Congress. It hasn't got much traction amongst the don't let government get involved people, which is the majority. But what it would do would create some kind of federal bond market that would it would fill that reinsurance gap for the most extreme catastrophes that would be not only hurricanes, but big fires in the West and these huge floods we've seen in the middle of the country and farm country and so on, So, I mean, it's way too early to say whether that could get some kind of traction, but I think what a lot of people, what Troy Carter told me for my story was that something like that, some sort of proposals that recognize these extraordinary catastrophes that we have from global warming, something needs to be put in place,
It almost seems like we could all self-insure and find our own pool of people with a scattering of states, a partner in Maine, a partner in Idaho, a partner in Florida, a partner in Iowa, and we all pool our huge, huge premiums that we're paying and invest them somehow and pay ourselves back instead of but the lenders won't allow us to do that for our homes, but it seems like there's got to be a better way. We're all spending ridiculous amounts of money to be insured, and this year, none of us are collecting on that. We're not getting anything back for it.
Companies do that. They form their own self-insurance pools. Big companies that have the wherewithal to do that. But if you think about how difficult,
could.
You would think, you would hope. It's kind of like Obamacare for insurance. But to do it though, you'd have to have ways of dealing with claims, which of course is a huge part of what the law changes that Tim Temple has brought in already to try to make it easier on companies dealing with claims. And I'm sure a lot of people who've pursued claims wouldn't necessarily.
This leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
Yes, you're right. And a number of others.
It's super complicated.
Yeah.
I mean,
and a lot of different pieces of legislation have been passed that makes it a more friendly environment to insurance companies, right? To try to get them to stay here and continue to insure us.
But the things that make it more friendly for insurance companies, like making it harder for them to be sued,
don't necessarily make it friendly for us.
And dropping policies. The 3-year rule.
There is a little bit of good news on that front. If I'll leave you with some good news, which is that one of the things that Tim Temple has been trying to do is get companies in here, and there are a couple that are that have applied to start writing policies for homeowners from next year.
Good. Well, that's good. We hope that trend continues. All right, Tony, thanks a lot. Very complicated issue that I'm sure we will be discussing more in the future. All right, over to you. Another complicated issue is crime, but some good news on that front in New Orleans.
Yeah, it's a complicated issue if you're the victim of a crime, If you're not, it's not as complex. Yes, good news. The 4 big categories that, we pretty much keep track of, and when I say the 4 big ones are homicide, shootings, carjackings, and armed robberies are down, and they're down in dramatic numbers. The Metropolitan Crime Commission, Raphael Goyeneche, does their reports on a weekly basis. Tanisha Stevens, the crime commissioner in the city of New Orleans, they release numbers on a weekly basis as well. They're released on different days. The numbers kind of mirror each other, but in such a dramatic way that from 2 years ago, the homicides down 52%, non-fatal shootings, the same thing. And to be honest, just about every category is down over the last 4 years. Back to 2019, that's 5 years actually. How we get to this point, and what Raphael said, by the way, is New Orleans had a crime spike which probably outpaced a lot of the rest of the country. We sort of led the country in, being really bad out here for a minute, especially in the wake of the pandemic. and that we are leading the country in the reductions. Now, how did we get here? Oh man, it's the $1 million question, but both Stevens and Goyeneche agree that resources to these agencies has played a really big part in it. Partnerships have really played a big part in it. The partnerships of state police, federal, folks like the U.S. Marshals, very, very active in apprehending some of the most violent criminals and getting them off the streets.
In that crime coalition, I mean, that was
Crime
really,
Coalition
that was
has
the
done,
business community was getting involved in it.
they've done well, and they've done well to sort of get assets to people and get resources to people. Tanisha Stevens said that. She said that she believes, and from their numbers, it appears that opportunities for some, if they're, and we're not talking hardcore criminals who are out here, you know, sticking guns in people's faces, that type of stuff, but folks sort of on the fence of theft and things like that, smaller crimes or whatever. She also says that the federal operations have shut down a lot of some of the gang activity. We don't have conventional gangs here, but if it's a group, it's a neighborhood group or something like that, they've been managing to round up some of those people. Back to Goyeneche, he feels that 2 weeks ago, or the end of 22, and that would be the last portion of Sean Ferguson's tenure, the police department switched from being a reactive force, but because the numbers were so small, to, as a result of the consultant that the department had in saying that, hey, we need to be proactive. I know your numbers are down, but we have to be proactive in some of these hot spots and all. That continued through Michelle Woodfork's tenure. We started to see a reduction then, and certainly Ann Kirkpatrick has continued a lot of that as well, where even things as little as, and we've heard about this since, you know, for decades now, things like traffic stops even are a part of, you know, what should have been happening, that where it might be, you know, a pain in the butt to sort of get pulled over for a stoplight or a tail light or whatever, but they're able to find other things that are happening even with those types of things, especially in the high crime areas. The number of stolen cars we had with no license plates or the paper license plates in the windows and all that, pulling those folks over and finding, oh, this is a stolen car, a lot of the times. So there's a number of different things that are a part of why we've gotten to this point. Certainly we all want to keep it there, but it's being reflected even in what the residents here think. You know, the UNO Quality of Life Survey, the crime numbers in terms of, or at least the concerns of residents about crime. Yes, it's still a very large concern, but it certainly doesn't mirror what it was a year ago or 2 years ago. The numbers of approval for Ann Kirkpatrick, you know, heading the department here and all, are certainly impressive as well.
Right, and it's a trend we want to see continue happen.
It's a trend we want to continue to see happen. Yes, please.
Okay, all right, thanks a lot. All right, Don, over to you. Something majorly big is going to be happening in our town next week.
Taylor Swift economics is real. The difference her concerts have made worldwide are huge. The question I'm asking this week is, you know, so you want to rent a room in your house? So you want to rent out your house? What are the real rules? Can you really do it? According to New Orleans and Company, our hotels are at a sold-out status for next Friday and Saturday. Wow. Sold out, and at approaching or surpassing 80% for Sunday. I checked just through hotels.com, not through the actual hotel websites, but what's available on hotels.com. And besides the regular hotels, you can find a whole lot of short-term rentals on hotels.com. I'll get to that in a minute. But hotels like La Quinta downtown are selling for $700 a night next weekend. The W New Orleans French Quarter is listed on hotels.com for $3,802 a night. So it behooves people, unfortunately, to maybe perhaps want to break the law and rent out their own house because they stand a chance of making some good money from Swifties coming to town. So really, what is the law? Well, if you're in St. Bernard Parish, you can get a permit to rent out your house short-term for about $500 a year, and it's allowed there. In Orleans Parish and Jefferson Parish, the law is very, very clear. And in Jefferson Parish, short-term rentals are only allowed in the commercial areas and very specific districts. If you're in violation of that, You are going to be fined. You also could have liens put on your property. It's a big deal. I mean, having a lien on your property is no fun. To have it removed and have to pay it off. Both Jefferson and Orleans Parish officials tell me they are watching the websites and pulling things down, pulling the illegal things down. But I think trying to keep up with it is almost insanity. Airbnb, as of Wednesday this week, had 8 pages of, and by pages, almost 100 listings per page.
Wow.
In Orleans Parish alone. VRBO had even more than that, thousands of listings in Jefferson and Orleans Parish. In New Orleans, violators can get charged $1,000 a day, $2,000 a day if they're repeat offenders. The city can also seek to have their electricity disconnected. But what I'm told kind of by both parishes is it's, buyer beware a little bit. If you're coming in and you are renting out a short-term rental, maybe ask for the permit. But you're not going to get fined for renting an illegal short-term rental, and they're not really going to kick you out. Yeah. The penalty comes to the homeowner or the leaseholder if you are renting a place and then you want to sublet it on the Airbnb or short-term rental market. You also can face these same fines, and they get steep. I mean, at $2,000 a day, I don't know how much you're bringing in rent, but if hotels are getting $3,800 a night, you might be for your short-term rental too.
No, I'm sorry for interrupting you. The Taylor concert, the 3 nights of concerts are a very unique thing because when we sell out hotels for Sugar Bowl, that's a game. Someone may come in for a day or stay overnight after the game or whatever. But for 3 nights on a weekend, no one's coming to New Orleans for just a day. You're coming for several days, which explains why the hotels got
right, and
so
the city is expecting more than 150,000 people to come to town just for and it's also Halloween weekend. So it's it was a huge weekend before Taylor Swift.
How can they tell the real Taylor Swift?
Right. I mean, well, how can you tell? I've been to one of the concerts. I went on to an Eras Tour show, and I will tell you there were no lines for the men's bathrooms, and there were no lines for the bar. It was mostly women and their girl children.
Wow.
But
so, no hotel rooms are very expensive hotel rooms, but a lot of listings for STRs that aren't necessarily legal.
They'll be pulled down, but as the city and the parish, both Orleans and Jefferson, don't have huge departments of people to just be monitoring that. But if you're caught, if you're one of the ones who is caught in that net, with Jefferson Parish, it's the Code Compliance and Enforcement Group, they're going to be tough on you. Like, it might not, as tempting as it may be to say, my house is available, it might not be worth it. You also don't know who you're getting. Do remember that if you're leasing your property to a stranger and you don't have proper documentation and you don't have a permit in place, your protections are really, they're not there.
Well, don't rent to any men. This weekend, right?
And the city does require a permit. The city and the parish both require short-term rental permits. You're out of time to have gotten them.
Yeah.
In a lot of areas, in New Orleans, you can't get permits right now.
So it may be tempting, but
can
take time to consider.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, Don. Thanks a lot. Okay, Errol, over to you. Our Saints.
Well, Thursday could have been a really big day. Well, it was a big day because of the Denver Broncos coming to town and their coach, Sean Payton. That was exciting. And they had that banquet to honor Drew Brees. And so that was a very touching day. And it could have been remembered as a good day if they hadn't played the game. Okay? That was the one drawback.
That was a major part of it.
Yeah. The game was the drawback.
Yeah. To take one at a time, at the banquet, at the luncheon, and Rod Walker of The Advocate was one who reported this story, that Drew Brees was talking, and in 2016 he was out of work because he had the shoulder injury. He didn't know if he'd play football again, and he was visiting in-laws in Birmingham, and he got a phone call on his cell phone, and he looked at the caller ID, and it was Sean Payton, and he turned to his father-in-law who was in the car with him. He says, "Who the hell is Sean Payton?" And so he took the call, and the rest we know.
Yes.
There were such great stories that were inspired in that Katrina, post-Katrina period, and that was one, the coming of Sean Payton. And then Sean Payton going to Drew Brees, who thought he was out of football. The Miami Dolphins already rejected him because of the shoulder industry. And, you know, he didn't know if he'd be playing again, and then what happens to him with all that. And so it was a really moving story and a really moving night last night. The other part, though, was the game. Coaches don't like, I think it's the code among coaches, that a coach will never use injuries as an excuse. I got to tell you, injuries are an excuse here. I mean, they have a lot of serious injuries.
When most of your starting lineup is out, it's hard to play again.
Problem.
With the quarterback, with Taysom Hill, with the linebackers, with the center, and so they're having a serious injury problem, and a lot of criticism of the defense, which isn't tackling, and you know, Coach Allen used to be a defensive specialist, and so the franchise is kind of in trouble. I mean, they've lost 5 games. It's not impossible to rally before the season is over, but it's going to be problematical. But for it to happen, though, with Sean Payton standing on the other side and watching it happen, you know. And from the interviews with players, it's not like they were giving any sympathy to the Saints players, you know. I mean, they were out for blood like they were on any other occasion. But it could have been a better night than it was.
Yeah, we all really wish that it had been a better night, that's for sure. So they've got, 10 days to heal, right? Because they don't play again until a week from Sunday. So hopefully some of these guys are back and shape enough to play.
A lot of them are season-ending injuries.
Yeah, a lot of them are season-ending injuries. The injury last night to the cornerback, and it's so crazy to Debo's injury, where the players that are starters are, you know, trying their best, you know, to really play. He's helping on a tackle with a guy and breaks his femur, and so he's out for the season. It's not like they're loafing. You know, he's out there tackling someone.
No, they're hustling and they're playing. It's almost like we're snake bit. So just.
Here's where Taylor Swift helps, okay? Because she's going to be in the dome.
Put her on the same.
No, because she's going to be in the dome in the weekend. The Saints couldn't play in the dome this weekend, so they had them Thursday.
So that gives them the 10 days.
So that gives them a few extra days, and then it might not have happened had it not have been for Taylor Swift. So.
Well, we can wish.
Still
we?
make the Super Bowl.
Right. Okay, Tony, we're going to wrap up with you right now because there is a grand reopening planned over at Caesars, new hotel, et cetera. Tell us what's going to be happening there, what we're going to find.
Well, this marks the end of this project that's been going on for 4 years. Started off at $325 and end up at $430, so it's almost a $500 million project. It adds a new hotel with kind of 2 levels, a Nobu exclusive level and then the regular Caesars level. So now they have 3 levels there, the old Harrah's Tower and those 2 hotels, and they've added a bunch of new restaurants. This is a big upgrade to make it a luxury destination since they were bought out by new owners about 5 years ago. Caesars was bought out. And the idea is that this will help connect them to Caesars members around the world. This puts us sort of on the par with Las Vegas and Atlantic City Caesars, who also have these kinds of luxury amenities. And hopefully it'll be a new departure for what was Harrah's until next Tuesday officially, which has kind of underperformed over the last couple of decades in terms of delivering on the tax and the jobs that were the basis for it getting the exclusive license to operate a land casino.
So this new hotel is right there in front
years
of the casino building, right? It's immediately part of the casino.
Yeah, it's part of it, and it's right on Convention Center Boulevard, right directly across from Four Seasons. So they've got Windsor Court there, Four Seasons there, and now this is the kind of luxury end where they hope all the high rollers will be concentrated, as well as the folks coming down from conventions from the Morale Convention Center down the road.
A lot of investment in that little corner of our world there, the city of New Orleans.
It's been huge, really, when you tot it all up. It's a $400 and something million on the Four Seasons. They've invested $570 million improving the convention center. They've got the $1 billion river district going up down there. Audubon is $40 million. You've got this new effort as well that the city is supporting to enliven the Spanish Plaza, which had a $7 million upgrade, but they're going to put in some restaurants and entertainment there. So that whole area down there, and of course Caesars was involved in the Superdome, which is just finishing a $500 million upgrade as well. So those are the combined really big projects in the city over the last few years.
Is Caesars the most aggressive of the casino companies around the country, like Harrah's, those that are expanding into other markets?
Well, there's this company called El Dorado, which actually backed into Caesars. That was the one that took over Caesars. You know, Caesars has been floating around for a few years, and it changed. These big casino operators, which have they've conglomerated with hotels as well, you know, and now these kind of restaurant deals like with Nobu that they've done, they're kind of changing as Las Vegas has been changing to become more sort of family orientated, but certainly to have a kind of wider range of things they offer rather than just, you know, sweaty gamblers, right? Yeah. They want people to go in and enjoy a meal at Emerald's and then cruise over to the roulette table and maybe do a little sports betting at the signature bar.
Emerald's presence is overwhelming. You walk in, the first thing you see is Emerald's. I mean, they really have a presence.
It's kind of, it has its own entrance, so you can just go to Emerald's if you want, or you can go in the new hotel entrance and just go to the Nobu
And what about
restaurant.
Nobu also? I mean, that's certainly a high-end restaurant, and some other new ones there too. Nina
That's the
Compton's
idea.
restaurant
Yeah,
as
lift
well.
the whole thing up and you know, get a higher people who are willing to lose more money is, I think, the big plan.
Yeah, it sounds like it's worth a look, though. Okay, thanks a lot, Tony. Okay, other stories. Hey.
Yeah, well, November 5th, of course, is the presidential election. That's the big thing on the ballot. There's not much else on the ballot, but look down because there's some things that are important. In Jefferson Parish in Orleans, there's a crime district renewal thing. It's like in Lakeview and Mid-City, and usually this is the kind of election where they have those kind of things. Also, in Orleans Parish, there's 3 school board elections. You don't hear much about the school board anymore since it became more of a charter operation. And so you don't hear much about the campaign, but there is things. Look at the bottom of the ballot, too, when you go vote.
All righty. Don?
Well, it's 10 more days till we have to see what the Saints are going to offer again, but it's Wednesday of next week when the Pelicans have their home opener, and maybe we have some promise there. They play Wednesday in the Smoothie King Center against Chicago, so if you're ready to switch your loyalties already, you don't have to wait long.
All right. LeBron?
Gorgeous weather out and festivals everywhere, and a little something for everybody. Funk Fest over at the New Orleans Jazz Museum with everybody from Big Frida to the Meters and all. That's all weekend. There's Home Fest at Bayou Road. Washington Parish free fair if you feel like driving out to Washington Parish.
Beautiful weather.
Then it's that time of the year, Errol, and one of your favorites, the Rougarou Fest in Houma. Go on out. And
yeah, right, and have a
Cheer
wonderful
But don't get fooled by it, because people, it turns cool. People say, oh, fall's here. Then you got a day, it's 89.
Yes.
It always suckers the same.
yeah, well, this weekend we know it's going to stay where it is.
So a lot to do. Okay, Tony, wrap it up.
I'm going to do a shout out to Funk Fest also. It serves, apart from just being entertainment, it serves another purpose, which is to showcase the Louisiana Museum and Heritage Experience, which is a project they're trying to get state money and raise money from this to put in down at the River District neighborhood, and it's kind of something that everybody, I think most people think is long overdue, a real kind of music museum for the
world
city.
class.
And a lot of great music.
museum.
All right, guys, got to
Need a lot
wrap
of
up
money,
now.
160 million.
I got to get them to stop talking. Okay, thanks everybody for being here. Thank you all for watching. See you again next week for Informed Sources. Have a good evening.
This program is brought to you in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support education, the arts, and culture in the greater New Orleans area.